Hi everyone.
We're here today at the GDG Cloud event at Campus London. We've had 4 amazing, inspiring speakers today talk about open source, machine learning and AI. If you haven't been to an event or a hackathon before, you should definitely attend. It's one of the most inclusive and diverse community events I've been to. Hopefully no one has fallen over and got bored of my talk, but thank you very much. We've been talking to GDG Cloud about having a hackathon because it would be great to get some coding. They do amazing workshops, but I'd love to just have 2 days of hardcore coding. I want to get to the YouTube space. I'm sure Jason and Florian can get me entrance into that. They apparently know everybody. They are some really cool dudes. And thank you for, I have like 4 cameras on me, and I understand that each camera adds 10 pounds, so I must be like 50 pounds heavier with so many cameras on me. I feel like a movie star. Yeah!
I think about myself as a preacher, so I'm talking about Firebase today, the gospel. I'm pretty sure many of us have heard about Firebase before. If you've heard about Firebase, just a show of hands. Fantastic. If you currently use Firebase actively in an app, a platform, a product, a show of hands as well. Okay, great. We have people who haven't, which is great, which means I'm preaching to the right crowd, not to the choir. Thanks for the introduction. I guess you've done this for me already. Yes. I run a company called, CTO of a company called Inet, co-founder. We build defense systems. We're a software development agency, and we have a couple of solutions we have out there. Part of which is we run the elections for 2 countries. A small country that has just 2 million voters. A large country that has about almost 100 million voters as well. And run taxes for 2 states or 2 cities in my country, Nigeria. I'm here on holiday, but saw the opportunity to speak, so couldn't refuse. I also organize the GDG Lagos community, as well as a cloud community in Lagos. And today I'm talking about Firebase. But a couple of things about it that excite me, not the entire features that Firebase has to offer. I'm talking about it because we've seen it in use in our company, help improve what we develop or we deliver to our clients. And in case you need a refresh about Firebase, if you haven't heard about Firebase, currently use Firebase. Firebase is a platform with many complementary features that you can mix and match to help you build high quality apps very quickly, grow your user base, and possibly earn money. And Firebase has so many different tools or products on it. Currently listed, publicly available, are about 17 of them. Then you can essentially mix and match as you so desire to produce a desired outcome. And I'm talking about 3 of them today: ML Kit, Remote Config, and Firebase Predictions. Firebase Remote Config is something that allows you to make dynamic changes to your app, even after it's already installed on your user's device. And it does that by allowing you to set up configuration parameters somewhere else that your app can easily access, that can easily be used to change how it behaves or control the behavior or the appearance of your app. And the general idea is you simply just set up those configuration parameters and they become readily available to your app almost instantly. You can set up what we call user segments to determine who sees what behavior, or who gets a specific appearance about your app. And a classic example of where this has been put into use, a real life example actually, is the Hotstar app that currently enjoys over 150 million active users every single month. And in May last year, there was a high stakes cricket game that had about 10 million people logged on at the same time watching the live stream of that cricket match. And they decided to roll out a feature which was emojis and some gamification in their app. Now they're using Firebase and they're using a couple of features of Firebase, one of which is remote config, another is Firebase Crashlytics. Now they turned on the feature for every single person initially, and because we were monitoring Crashlytics, they saw that there was a spike in the number of crashes for people who had low-end devices. And once we were able to narrow down that it was people who had low-end devices, what they simply did with remote config was to set up a configuration such that they targeted those with low-end devices. These specific features should be turned off on them so that those users could enjoy using the app even if they had a limited set of features until they were able to fix the issue. And they were able to do this without having to send a new build to the Play Store or to the App Store to try and get users to download and enjoy the game. But if the game is 2 hours long or an hour long, it's unlikely you will be able to roll out the new version of your app to all of them while the game is still on. And the good thing about remote config is you can set it up to test out new versions or new features in your app. So you can set up, like you can see on the screen, a feature that is sent out to only 10% of your entire user base. In this case, a random 10%. And there are many other options that you can choose from there. And if you feel your users are enjoying it, feedback is good, few crashes or no crashes whatsoever, you can then start to increase that to 20%, 30%, all the way down to 100%. And the advantage of that, even for you as someone who handles the backend or the cloud infrastructure that you have, is you can then start to monitor and see how your infrastructure is behaving as a new feature is being rolled out to users, versus having a floodgate open and lots of traffic and you're not ready to handle that amount of traffic. There's ML kits for Firebase as well. Now the ML kit is machine learning kit that provides currently 5 out-of-the-box APIs to do object detection, text recognition, face detection, barcode scanning, image labeling, and landmark recognition. Now, all of these features are actually ready for use on the mobile devices that you may support with your app. And they work offline as well, which means all the processing for that can happen on device versus in the cloud. And in addition, if there are specific scenarios or features or APIs you want to use that are not readily available or these don't cover that, there is a TensorFlow Lite model that you can load into Firebase and become accessible and available within the edge device, which is the mobile device that the person is using. That is also available for you to do. So if you want to train, for example, a model to detect what kind of facial hair the person has, you can build a model and put it on the device, and it would not have to connect to the cloud to do all of that, so you escape from all that network latency, or even from handling that traffic within your infrastructure. All of that can happen within the person's handheld device. There's Firebase predictions, and what it does is it uses machine learning to build on top of data that you are already collecting, if you're using analytics, to then make predictions about your user behavior, about your users, how they're behaving. Firebase analytics on its own tells you about what's happened, past events, right? Even if it's real time, it's still a few seconds, few minutes, hours, days, weeks ago. Firebase prediction is a complementary feature to analytics that can make predictions based on user behavior. For those of you already using Firebase analytics, if you've used it for more than 100 days, for example, predictions are very, very good for your app because you already have 100 days worth of data that you can use to make judgment and tell you whether these users are going to behave in a certain way or another. And what that will empower you to do is to take actions to encourage that behavior or to discourage behavior. Encourage could be to engage more with your app. Discourage them from uninstalling your app. The studies have shown that the number of apps installed per user per month is 0. And that's because after the initial setup of your device, it's unlikely you're going to install any new apps unless it's a very strong case that someone makes. There's a strong need that you have. So once you end up on the person's device, you definitely want to stay there. Firebase predictions helps you to understand your users and make predictions on what they're going to do next with your app. And again, Firebase predictions relies on Google Analytics, events that happen within your app, and the two events or the two main behaviors that Firebase predictions tracks pretty well without you having to do additional work is if the user is likely to churn or is likely to spend or engage within your app. But you can also create additional events that you're tracking. If it's likely to share, if it's likely to act in a certain way or abandon your app completely. 100 days is like the sweet spot to start to make good predictions with your app over the next 7 days, what the user is possibly going to do. And what you can do, for example, is to schedule notifications to go out to these users about a promo or about a new feature or about a new service that you're launching out. With it, you're going to be able to target the right group of users with the information that you have. A specific group of users are having trouble crossing level 4 of your game. You can set, because based on analytics, it can tell when users get frustrated, they tend to uninstall the app because they're not getting value out of the app any longer. What it means is, predictions will tell you that users who are failing level 4 are likely to uninstall your app or, like I said, churn. And you can then set it up such that when users experience a certain level of frustration with your app, they can get a different experience, in this case, an easy level 4. And since you have that segmentation of those who are happy with your app, who are neutral with your app, who are unhappy with your app, you can then sort of target them with specific content. That's what I'm talking about tonight. If you have any questions,
for your speech. Two questions about the choice of religion. So obviously, Firebase is quite like Google. So in your opinion, when should I convert to Firebase? When should I stick to Google Cloud? That's the first question. Second question is, do you often see like a mixture use of both platforms in your software architecture? Thank you.
Okay, fantastic question. So Firebase actually is a part of the Google Cloud platform, even though it's positioned a bit differently, right? Which is why there's that somehow disconnect between the Google Cloud platform, which is all the VMs, Kubernetes, and all of that on one side, and then there's Firebase on one other side. The answer to both questions is actually almost the same, which is we, for example, mix and match to provide whatever sort of service or access or latency management or speed that we want to do. For example, when we have this service that is tracking buses all over the city. We're tracking those buses using Firebase, but the rest of our analytics, the rest of our work is on a relational database that we also have in place. But all that real time to know exactly where the bus is at right now, all that historical information, the bus goes offline, we need to know where it's been. Do that with Firebase. At the end of the day, we do all the calculations of the earnings and everything, store that on a relational database system. So you are very much encouraged to mix and match with and without all the components of Firebase or with other existing systems that you have.
You mentioned earlier that Firebase now supports TensorFlow-like models. Got a question about that. Does it also support versioning of TensorFlow models? So if I make an update to a model, will that automatically be pulled onto the applications that use it?
Yes.
Thank you.
And it will retrain automatically as well.
Perfect. Thank you.
Hi. So you were mentioning about Hotstar and how they were, modifying, toggling the features based on the mobile devices. Can you elaborate a bit more on how exactly the Firebase was getting that data?
Fantastic. I'm happy to do that. So they rolled out the update weeks before the actual match, right? But they set the features to off, right, within remote config. So those features were not turned on for any users, right? So on the day of So on remote config, you can set a parameter. For example, color blue, right? And what it means is, by default, everybody will get that specific setting. So within the app, they are watching to see what is the value of the key color. Right? If it's blue, then the app acts in that specific way. So on the day of the event, what they did was to simply change that value from off to on. The best case scenario, what they should have done was to have rolled out maybe 10%, 20%, but then again, we were worried about how much time the match was going to go on for. So they just released the feature while people were watching the match, and then people started to engage with it. So simply by turning a feature off and on, immediately all the devices that are online at that moment will get that specific configuration change. So within their app, they are watching to see, is this feature on or off? Feature is on, great. Show the buttons, change the layout, do all of that. Right? So they still had to write the code to watch for the configuration change.
Okay, so they should have planned for this from when they were writing the features, right?
Yes, they had to have planned for it.